Hi, everyone. Okay, I'd like to welcome you onto the course, and I'm going to just show you a couple of key things for you to refer to during the course. Okay, so I'm going to share with you, the first thing I'm going to share with you is I am going to share with you, let's see, that's right, the course timetable, which I hope you can see there. Now, on this timetable, you can see that there is the first, I'm just going to talk really the first few sessions of the term, so that it's all themed. The yellow colour is sort of person-centred. And as we change colour, that means we're changing themes, we're changing modules. So I have a tendency to sort of colour code everything. And if you're at all confused about the colours, just come back to me. But you can see there's the first module, person-centred, in yellow. Then we look at diversity and ethical principles, which has just one session, but a hell of a lot of resources there to share. Then we have the sort of psychodynamic relational part of the programme, which starts in November. Now, the grey bits of the programme are independent stuff, and I'll discuss that with you in a minute. But we've got 3 psychodynamic sessions there. And then we go into, in January, we look at the group module. And then finally, for the last bit of the programme, we look at, again, an overview, your independent study and some bits and bobs, such as some areas of CBT in supervision, TA in supervision, working with vicarious trauma, and so on. And then finally in the timetable, as you know by now, we've got accreditation with CPCAB. And what that means is their external verifier will actually come and visit the programme and look at the portfolios that you will have done by the 10th of May next year. So if you want an absolute deadline, you've got the 10th of May next year for various bits of study, but you will have assembled a portfolio for the verifier to have a look at that point. So that's an important thing to be aware of. If I now just come back really to Friday the 1st of December, that's your first experience, that's your first group that you will do on your own, and we'll talk more about that as we go along in the course. So, but just drawing your attention really to the independent study, which is in grey, and you can see all the different areas then on the timetable. So any questions, talk to me, but also have a good read of the course information. So that's the timetable. So now the next thing that I want to share with you is, of course, the assessment handbook. So let me just have a little look for that. And where is the little thing? I think, no, that's not the one. It's that one. Here we go. Now, the assessment handbook, which you will also have been sent through in the post, and you'll also find it on the introduction bit of the Teams, introduction to the programme, or under general or introduction. It's going to be in one of those 2 folders. So as you can see there, there's an assessment handbook, which is meant to make your life simple because you can see the assessments. Look, now, anyone recognise that? That's a photo that my sister took of Penarth Pier. I think it's quite a good photo. She's quite a good photographer. So I thought I'd just include that for a little bit of pleasure there. But within this, we give you, let's have a look at the calendar of deadlines and just the titles really of the assessments, so that you get to know, get your heads around what we're doing. So as you know, we have an attendance record, which is very important. Everybody meets, and I've nagged you all to death about that already before the course even starts. but we like an 80% attendance at group supervision, and we do keep records, so and at all classes. This is because the effect of your absence, as it were, affects not just you, but your whole supervision group. You know, if there's one person missing, learning is very interdependent on this program. Also, as you know, we're doing a sort of work on a module on group supervision as well. And that's, of course, very dependent on everybody turning up for each other. So it's really important. Think of learning as interdependent. It's not just you in the program, but it's you, everyone else in the program as well. And we need everybody to attend on a regular basis. And also we need to record that you're attending your supervision on a regular basis, because you have supervisees and you owe it to them to attend your supervision. The supervision that we offer will be both for you and your supervisee on the programme. What we encourage you to do in those supervision sessions there is to use the supervision group, the first 3 or 4 supervision groups, pretty much for yourself, but, you know, bringing in your supervisee where you feel appropriate, and then to use more and more of the supervision session for your supervision work. So looking at that then, so we've got our attendance, we've then got our first assignment, which will come into the tutors and one peer, which will be your workbook. I'll show you the workbook in another video, but that's a workbook that asks you a series of questions and invites you to reflect after each session. We're going to try to, again, allocate a little bit of class time for that. But you will also have to allocate some private time for that. And we recommend that you do that virtually straight after the session or as soon as possible thereafter, so it doesn't become a big bogey, that you do it as you go along. And that's the idea, and as it's fresh in your mind. So do that, and it's also got a dual purpose, that criteria workbook. So we'll discuss that separately. So then assignment 2 is your first skills assessment, and that will be done. You'll make a recording in your supervision group without the tutor there, but with your group there. So on Teams, the supervision group will be held. I will open the group for you, and each supervisor will open the groups for them. The supervisees will then join the group, and you will supervise each other and have that session. Then you'll record the whole session, so you can then look back on your bit of the session that you were a supervisor and be able to do a self-assessment there of your supervision. And we'll also ask you as supervisee to the others, as a peer supervisee, to write 2 peer assessment checklists for your colleagues, and to send those directly to your colleagues after the session. And then what you'll do subsequent to that is you'll prepare a self-assessment for your supervisor to bring to your tutorial on the week commencing the 11th of December. And you'll bring along your self-assessment, in other words, your self-filled out checklist, indicating how competent you feel you are, to talk with your tutor about, and that is obviously informed by your peer assessment sheets as well. So bring all of those to the tutorial, or if we have it online, you'll have them ready to show and to share with your supervisor. The other thing that we'll also ask to look at after we've looked at your skills, competencies, and had a good discussion about that, is we'll also look at how you filled out your assessment forms for the others, because that's another element of being a clinical supervisor, isn't it? Is to actually give feedback and give it in a specific and clear way, so that people can understand it. It's not persecutory, it's done in a way that people can digest, that sort of thing. So we're looking at that request there. So okay, so that's got a bit distracted then, an email came up on the screen, but that's your second assessment, and that will all be done by the 11th of December. So that's your kind of live assessment. Then your third skills assessment will be for the group skills, and that will be on the 23rd of February. And that will be where you'll facilitate a small group. We'll have a sort of running quite a busy session, which will divide up into different groups to your supervision groups. And we'll have tutors in each group, and but each of you will have an opportunity then to facilitate a small supervision group, just one session, one supervision session within the context of a small supervision group that you'll stay in for the day. So you'll each take a turn at being supervised and also being the group supervisor, and we'll fill out a little checklist for you there, and that will be your group supervision assessment. So peer supervisions, we've talked about their peer supervision skills. So we're interested in, you know, you being specific, concrete in your feedback, fair and balanced, and so on. So we'll be looking at evidence of that in relation to those checklists that you do for your colleagues. And also what we'll ask you to do is to look at one workbook from a colleague. So to look at the criteria and give them a feedback sandwich. I think we all know what feedback sandwich is, don't we? So some positive feedback, some areas for development. And what we think is helpful for you here is to look at just the process really of looking at somebody else's workbook, which will probably help you with your workbook too. So we're looking at that as a kind of helpful thing to do for each other, and that will also expand your capability as a supervisor, because often one of the sub skills of supervision is a kind of a teaching skill. So it's quite helpful there to be able to give some written feedback. So on your workbook, you will receive feedback from one colleague, one peer on the programme, in other words, plus your supervisor, and you'll hand in that workbook twice. So we talked about the group skills assessment, which comes into February. The peer supervision skills comes in at different times there. So you'll see that. We're not going to formally assess you on your peer assessment skills, but we want to see them there. All right, but the group skills is a formal skills. Then we have the achievement of 10 hours supervision being undertaken. We like that to be with just one or two supervisors. So I wouldn't want to see a series of 10 separate hours of supervision done with separate people, you know, because what we need to see is evidence of a consistent, regular relationship, trusting relationship being built up that, you know, becomes more and more in depth as time goes on. So we'd like to see some evidence of that. Now, we recognise that sometimes supervisees don't want 10 sessions, they only want a few sessions. And so, you know, what we say is, well, you know, 1 to 2 sessions is the most ideal. I mean, if it doesn't kind of quite work out like that for you, then we'll accept 3 if, you know, somebody disappears and, you know, you're stuck. But what we'd like to see is some good, honest bits of a regular relationship and a consistent relationship, so that you'll show that that supervision will be evidenced by your the evaluation that the supervisee does on the skills assessment. We have some examples of that in this handbook here. And that also evidences the amount of hours that you've done together. So the supervisee will confirm that you've done 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of supervision, whatever it is, with them. And they'll also evaluate it. And we strongly suggest that you sort of talk about that evaluation as well. Don't just, you know, receive a form back and that's it. You know, do have a conversation about that in your closing supervision session. Then additionally to that, what we ask you to do is to do a piece of work on one of your supervisees, one of them who you've been working with, a case reflection, a 1,000 word case reflection, which if you in practice, a 1,000-word case reflection is about 3 pages of handwritten, 3 or 4 pages of handwritten. So it's not very long. And it's probably about 2.5 pages of typed. So it's not a lot. So you're going to have to be really disciplined there. And we have a brief for that, which isn't actually in the handbook yet. It hasn't found its way because it's a sort of something that we've just brought into the course as part of the accreditation process. So we'll give you that separately. And we're giving you we'll give you sort of 5 themes of which you can choose a theme to focus on so that it won't be quite so difficult as to do a whole kind of reflection on it. But we're asking you to reflect on the piece of work that you've done with your supervisee in taking a particular focus, and that will evidence also the piece of work that you've done in your ability to reflect back on that. Now, at the end of all of that, then, so we're saying that obviously the supervision case reflection needs to come towards the end of the piece of work that you've done with your supervisee. So that's likely to be in the spring of next year. And you can begin writing it, of course, I would suggest probably February, complete it by, I would say, the end of March. It's not going to be a long piece of work. We'd quite like it referenced, but just 4 or 5 references, not extensively. So have that done definitely by the end of March. Because then assignment 7, which isn't actually an assignment in itself, but it's a collation of all your assignments to make it into the portfolio. So the portfolio is a kind of an additional artifact really that the CPCAB would like from you. So it's not something we've had in the course traditionally to date, but what that is it's going to contain all your workbooks and everything in it, and it's going to indicate how you've met the course criteria. Now we'll discuss all that also in the supervision criteria workbook, which I will talk to you about. But that portfolio will evidence how you've met it. So you're going to have to, in other words, keep a tidy file where it's signposted, and we got some guidance for that. So what I want is not to get too lost in all of that for the moment. It's just to focus on the first 4 sessions, getting yourselves settled and get into the program and just enjoy it. And then, we can begin to think about some of this, this stuff as we get into it. But I just want to get you comfortable to begin with, and reading and thinking about things, but without sort of feeling too pressured. So let's take it from there, and I hope this is going to be a helpful video for you. You can give me some feedback on that. All right, I'm going to stop sharing that. And here I am back, and I'm going to hopefully save this and put it up on the website for you. So let us cease recording. That's the first thing we need to do. Stop recording.